So, if you're a football fan, you certainly recognize this man's picture. He is considered one of the greatest NFL coaches in history. His name is Tom Landry. Tom Landry won multiple Super Bowls with the Dallas Cowboys. Boo, hiss. But anyway, he once was asked, by a reporter said, what makes a champion? What makes a champion? So how do you create these championship players and championship teams? And his answer was goals. All winning teams set goals. J.C. Penney, this is what he looked like. J.C. Penney once said this, give me a stock clerk with a goal, and I'll give you a man who will make history. Give me a man with no goals, and I'll give you a stock clerk. Norman Vincent Peale, a very famous author, said all successful people have a goal. No one can get anywhere unless he knows where he wants to go and what he wants to be or do. And then Seth Godin is a very famous best-selling writer today, marketing expert, says the thing about goals is that living without them is a lot more fun in the short run. Now hear me say that, okay? I'm not downplaying that. It's a lot easier and oftentimes a lot more fun just to live without a goal for the short run, but he's right when he says, it seems to me though that the people who get things done, who lead, who grow, and who make an impact, those people, they have goals. So we're talking about everyone's favorite subject in America, goals. Some of you, just the word alone makes you nervous. It's like you see the word on the screen, you're like, it's already starting to make you anxious. Would you just table that for a little bit? Just hold off on that because this is such an important subject. And I know that it creates a lot of angst and anxiety inside of people. So I'm not making fun of that at all. Much, but I know that it does I know this because I've done both, okay? In my life, I've taught on this subject many, many times. I used to actually teach on goals, the very first message of every calendar year for years. Some of you have heard me teach on this before. It's been a long time, though. I haven't taught on it. I've done both ways. I have done January 1st, I got my goals in place, and I live by my goals. And I've also done January 1st, don't even think about goals, don't set any goals. I've done both. And I can tell you honestly which years were better. It's not even close. The years where I was focused, and I was setting goals, and I was shooting for those goals were always, always, always better than and more productive than the years where I just kind of let things happen. You all understand that intellectually, but I've experienced it. I know what it's like to set goals and not set goals. I know what it's like to have a year where you look back and you're like, yeah. And I know what it's like to get to the end of the year and go, I know both feelings. And it's living with goals is definitely the better way. You can experience so much more in your life when you're willing to consider setting goals for 2019 in this case. So, because here's what it's like. Without goals, this is what it's like. This man's name is Senator Dwight W. Morrow. He was a senator in New York at the end of the 1800s, early part of the 1900s. One day he went to the railroad station to get on a train to go and speak at this engagement that he was scheduled for. And when he got there, he started searching for his ticket. And he couldn't find it. And the railroad conductor was standing right behind him, and everybody knew him. He was a very famous politician at the time. And so finally the conductor said, don't worry about it, Senator Morrow. Just get on the train and go. We trust you. When you find the ticket, just mail it to us. And he said, it's not that. He said, I have to find the ticket. I don't know where I'm going. Yeah, he could get on the train and it would take him somewhere, right? But he needed to know where he was going. If you try and live your life without goals, it's like getting on the train and not knowing where you're going. Because isn't it true? You're going to go somewhere in 2019. You are going to go somewhere. You are going to do something. But it may not be the direction you want to go. Because isn't it true that we never coast and we never drift into good habits? Isn't that true? Have you ever just drifted into a good habit? All of a sudden, woke up one day and my spouse and I were so much better at conflict. We didn't know how it happened. We just woke up one day and all of a sudden we were great at conflict. Kind of crazy. All of a sudden I woke up one day and I dropped 50 pounds and I hadn't even tried and my lungs are great, my blood pressure's great, my cholesterol's great. And then amazing, it just happened. Right, said no one ever. We will not, in 2019, drift into positive habits and better habits. It won't happen unless we think about it and we set goals. Goals, properly done, can result in positive change. Because here's what I really want for you. I want next year when I do this message, I want you to be sitting here happy about 2019 and what happened to you in 2019? Because you thought about it now, and you made a plan, and you began to shoot toward that plan, and your life got better. I want that for you. So I don't want it for myself, so I'm doing it too. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about, as we start this new series called New Year, New You, we're going to talk about this, how to set and reach your goals. Would you please open up your program, take out the notes that you'll find inside, grab a pen. There'll be some things you're going to want to write down. And of course, welcome to those of you who've tuned in on YouTube. So glad you're there. In the comments section below are the notes, so you can open it up and just follow along. So much stuff to talk about today. Oh, this is good. I really needed this message. Sometimes the messages are just for me. So I don't know if this is for you, but this is for me, and I really needed this. So I'm really happy you're here to listen to me talk to myself. So let's talk about this. Here's where it always starts. Goal setting always starts with reality. You have to face reality about your own life. And that's not fun. But this is where all goal setting starts. It starts with reality. All goal setting starts with reality. I saw some pictures. I didn't know there was like a whole series of these. Some of you may be more familiar with this than I am, but it's like expectation versus reality. You ever seen these little pictures online? You know, what you expect when you wake up and what reality is when you wake up, right? What you expect when you bite your lip trying to look sexy and what you actually really look like in reality. What going bald you expect to look like and what you actually look like, that one hurts a little. So it's like, yeah, great, right? Reality, one of the things that you'll hear me say over and over again is reality is our friend. It may hurt, but it's your friend. And all goal setting starts with reality. You have to look with honesty at where you're at today. Where are you at? Before we can talk about where you want to go, you got to look at where you're at. So I love the honesty of Paul in the New Testament. He wrote a verse. One time he's talking about one of his goals. He says, brothers, he said, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. So he said, here's where I want to go. I'm not there. I'm here. I have not yet taken hold of this. So that's my question to you. What areas of your life would you like to be somewhere else and you haven't taken hold of it yet? So let me ask you to think about that. And here's the question. What's my reality in these areas of my life? What's your reality financially? Some of you don't like to think about that because some of you, if you were really, really, really honest, are headed towards a financial cliff. That's just reality. You can, like I said recently in a message, you can ignore reality, but you cannot ignore the consequences that come from ignoring reality. You can ignore that financial cliff, but you can't ignore the consequences that will come when you go over the cliff. What's your financial reality? The financial reality for some of you is I'm going to work forever because I'm not saving for retirement. The financial reality is I'm vulnerable because I don't have health insurance. What's the reality? You need to start with where you're at. What's your reality? What's your reality spiritually? Some of you, if I were to say, tell me the last time you had a real incredible adventure or moment with God, a time when you sensed his presence and you experienced something and God prompted you to do something, you did it and you're like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to tell people about this. Can you even think of one? Because God is inviting you into an adventure with him, not a religious service once in a while. So if you don't have that, this series is going to be for you. We're going to talk a lot in this series about connecting with God on that kind of level. Matter of fact, next week's message, we're really going to talk about that. And for some of you, that's the one you need to come because the reality is you can't think of any time when you experienced God. Or it's been a long, long time since you had any real experience with God. And God doesn't want that for you. He wants you. He wants to put you in the middle of a crazy, wild, awesome adventure with him here on earth. He wants you in the New Testament. He says, I pray that you would not just know the love of God, but that you would experience it. He wants you to experience his love. Do you? For some of you, that's your reality. Don't ignore it. Own it. The reality is my spiritual life is not where it needs to be. You're just owning it. Physically, again, this is the one that everybody thinks about. Most people think about in America. I got to get better shape. My doctor says I got to get better shape. You know, mentally, are you developing in areas where you know that you don't know what you need to know? Family and relationally, some of you have issues in your family, in your personal relationships or work or business. Some of you hate your job. You hate your job. And that's your reality. personal life. Some of you have addictions. You have things that you don't ever want to do again and you keep doing. Some of you have pain from your past that you've never addressed. You've never gotten over it. What's your reality? All goal setting starts with honest reality. And again, you can put so many things on a slide like this. Some of you, the reality is your communication in your marriage is so poor. Some of you had no idea how to have a fair fight. You know how to fight, but your fights are destructive, not constructive. Some of you would say your marriage isn't very intimate. Two strangers living in the same house. Some of you have relationships with your kids, and there's so much unhealthy conflict there. Some of you are falling behind financially. You don't love God more than you did in the past. You drink too much. Your anger hurts people. How many things can we put on a slide like this? What's your reality? All goal setting starts with reality. So, what's your reality? In my life, one of the things I put down, I have 5 goals for 2019. I got 5 already identified, and that's all I'm shooting for. And one of them is I've been held back for a long, long, long time because I got impulsive when I was 20 years old and I left college before finishing my senior year, and I've never gone back to finish my degree. I've gone back and finished 5 more classes, but I am really, really close to finishing my stupid degree. And in this world, that matters. And it's just silly that I don't have it. That's my reality. And it's cost me over the years. It's cost me. Well, that's just dumb. That's my reality, and I'm tired of it. I have not taken hold of what I want, my college degree. That's my reality. So my goals come out of my reality. Your goals will come out of your reality. Where do you need to face reality? Number 2. Now, once you look at where you're at honestly, hey, this is where I'm at, you decide where you want to go. Where do you want to go? Because here's the truth. You're going to go somewhere this year. You are going somewhere. But it may not be where you want to go. So you got to think about, well, this is my reality. I'm not where I want to be in this area of my life. So where do I want to go? What do I want when the calendar year in 2019 clicks over? What do I want to accomplish? What do I want in 2019? I'm asking you to think about that now. So one of my favorite stories about goal setting is something I've told before, and I don't mind telling you this again because I want you to be able to tell yourself this. I want you to think about this. I want you to be able to tell your friends, your kids. If you're a parent or grandparent, you should tell your kids and grandchildren this. Here's what I want you to know. There was a woman who went to a goal setting seminar. And afterwards, she came up to the speaker, and she was so frustrated. She said, I feel a little stuck, and I want to talk to you about my situation. She said, I have always wanted to be an attorney. Since I was a little girl, I used to watch attorney shows. I used to read books about attorneys. She said, I actually used to go to courthouse just to sit in the courthouse and watch the cases unfold. And I just, I'm disappointed because I've always wanted to practice law and I'm not. And he said, well, what do you do now? And she said, I work in the loan industry. And he said, well, do you like it? She said, I hate it. I hate it every day. I like the people I work with. I'm grateful for the income, but I hate what I do. And he says, well, it sounds pretty clear. Why don't you just go do it? And she said, well, it's going to take too long. And he said, well, how long will it take? And she said, about law school takes about 3 years. And he said, so let me get this straight. It's going to take you 3 years, right? And you hate what you're doing now? Yep. He said, let me give you something to think about. He said, do you plan to be alive 3 years from now? And she kind of laughed and said, well, I certainly hope so. He said, okay, then think about this. That date 3 years from now is coming. It's coming, period. It's not optional. 3 years from now, it will come and you will be alive. You're going to be here. Now, here's the question. Since that day is going to come 3 years from now, on that day, do you want to have a law degree enabling you to do something you love, or do you still want to be hating your life? He said, before you answer, let me emphasize what I just said. You said the reason you haven't chosen to go to law school is that it's going to take too long, as if the passing of 3 years was optional. 3 years are going to pass. That day, 3 years from now, will be here. The question is, what do you want your life to look like on that day 3 years from now? She said, I never thought about it that way. So I'm asking you to think about it that way. Especially those of you who the career is the thing right now. You are not happy where you work. You do not like what you do. And it's intimidating to think about going back for more schooling or something like that. is if you know what we could do right now, we could take this clip right here and we could clip it out and put it in a file, and 3 years is going to pass like that, and 3 years will pass and I could be showing that clip again. Remember 3 years ago when I said this? Did the passing of time bring you what you wanted? Did 3 years pass and now you're so much closer to the life that you wanted? Because you know that he's right. 3 years is going to go like that. We're going to turn around and be 3 years older. Will that passing of time bring you closer to what you want? Or will you 3 years from now be sitting here going, I sure still hate my job. I still hate what I'm doing. I still hate this conflict. I still hate this addiction. You don't have a choice about the passing of time. You only have a choice about whether or not the passing of time is going to bring you closer to the life you want. That's the only option you have. And so that's where you said, okay, so here's where I'm at, here's what I want to do, and then you pursue it like Paul talked about. He said you forget what is behind, you strain toward what is ahead, and look what you do. You press on toward the goal. That's what you have to do. So this is where I'm at, this is where I want to be. I need to make this goal something that I'm really focused on and moving toward. So once you know, okay, here's my reality, then this is where I want to go, this is the goal I'm pressing on toward. Then what you do is you write your goals around that. So on the back of your notes, at the top, I put this acronym. It's first time I've ever taught this before. It's SMARTER. Some of you have heard SMART goals, so I'm going to show you SMARTER because they're smarter than SMART. So it's an acronym, of course, and SMART starts with S, which is specific. So some of you have a weight loss goal. Very common in America right now, right? I'm going to lose some weight. Do not say I'm going to lose some weight this year. That is not specific. What are you going to lose? I'm going to lose a pound a month. See, there's a difference. You got to make it specific. Just so you know, for years and years and years when I did teach on this, I would say, hey, if you want me to look your goals over, you can send them to me. I'll look them over for you. This is one of the first mistakes people make. I just want to get healthy in 2019. What does that look like? What do you want? Don't send me that because I'm going to mark it up in red and send it back to you. That's not okay. It's not specific, and it's also not measurable. So getting healthy in 2019, what do you want? Well, I want my blood pressure down to a normal, healthy range. Now there's a specific and measurable goal. What do you want? Make it specific, make it measurable, and then make it with an action. Start each sentence with a verb. I want to quit. I want to run. I want to finish. I want to eliminate. What do you want to accomplish? The R stands for realistic. Don't any of you put down winning a gold medal in any Olympic event in 2019. First off, I don't think there are Olympics in 2019, but second, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it unless you've already been training for 10 years. That's not going to be an attainable goal. So don't put on something that is so ridiculous because what happens if you put a goal so big out there, I'm going to win president of the United States in 2019. We don't have an election in 2019. And second, I'm not going to be president. So if it's so enormous that you can't achieve it, then you just quit. And then you do what most Americans do, like that goal setting stuff doesn't work. I was going to be an astronaut and I never made it. Well, for goodness sakes. It's got to be something that's realistic. So it's got to stretch you. Can't be simple, but it's got to also be in the realm of reality. So if you send me something that says something that I'm like, what? Then I'm going to ask you why you think that's a realistic goal for you. Time bound. It's got to have a date. And the date's really important. So let's say that you're like, okay, this is the year I'm going to be healthy, and by June 1st, I'm going to have lost 10 pounds. The date really matters. If you move that to December 1st, by December 1st, I'm going to have lost 10 pounds. Doesn't the date change things? Not even a pound a month. I'm going to lose 8 ounces every month for the next 11 months, right? Okay, well, I can do that. But if you move it to March 1st, does the date change that? You lose 10 pounds by March 1st. Well, all of a sudden, your goal and the date it's attached to is really going to change how you behave based on what you're shooting for. So the time really matters. Now, that's SMART. Many of you are familiar with SMART, but let me show you the 2 letters that are on the end of this that I think are more important, and this is the most important letter. Ready? Exciting. Why do you want this? If you accomplish this, what will happen? What's the payoff? Can you picture it? So don't just tell me I want to lose 10 pounds this year. Why? Why? Why is that exciting to you? Well, because I want to be able to walk without pain. I want to be able to go on walks with my kids. Or I want to be able to get down on my knees and wrestle with my grandkids. Now you're telling me why it's exciting. Don't just say, I want to do this. Because I'll tell you right now, 1 week from now, you'll already have given up on something that's not exciting to you. If it's not motivating to you, you won't do it. If it's only because I don't want to hear the doctor give me one more speech, that's not exciting to you. That's not going to motivate you. It's got to be something that you're like, this is what I want. If your goals aren't exciting to you, you won't pursue them. Why do you want what you're shooting for? You have to think this through. And then if you can, picture it. Years and years ago, I got it in my mind that I wanted to, my daughter's a runner and some other people started running, and I wanted to run a marathon. And there was this incredible marathon that was going to finish. The finish line was in Lambeau Field. Now, being a huge Packer fan, I cannot tell you how much, every time I got on that treadmill, and I hated it, I would picture running this marathon and finishing in Lambeau Field. And all of a sudden it's like, because I could picture what I wanted, and it was motivating, it was exciting to me. And then I hurt my knee, and I've never been able to run again. But it worked. It worked. You've got to picture it. Why is it exciting to you? Some of you are like, yeah, you got running goals. Some of you want to run a half marathon, a full marathon. Why? Why is that exciting to you? You got to tell me why. And it has to be, when you talk about it, that there's some excitement, because if it's not, you're not going to do it. If it's like, well, I just know I need to do it, that's not enough for you. You've got to have some reason to do it. It's got to be compelling to you, or you won't accomplish it. And 2019 will not accomplish what you want. And then finally, relevant to the season of life, this is really important for those of you who are parents with young children. You will not set the same goals as a single man who's 48 years old. That's a totally different season of life, right? Your season of life will affect your goal setting. So sometimes, again, people set these huge unrealistic goals for the season of life that they're in. So make sure it's relevant to the season of life that you're in. So one of the things that I've wanted for a long, long time, I haven't pursued this at all for a long time, is I love to write children's books. And Dr. Seuss kind of funny, humorous books. And so years ago I started writing them. I love it. I get lost in time. You have anything in your life like that? When you're doing it, you just don't even notice the time. When I'm writing these funny kids' books, I don't even notice the time. I absolutely love it. And so years ago, I made this goal. I want to get one of these books published. And so I wrote this book, and then I hired an editor in the Twin Cities who works with children's authors. And I worked with her, and every time you would send it back, you had to pay money. First time was a lot, and then it was less every time. And I just kept sending it back and sending it back and sending it back so that I could get this thing ready. And then finally, she sent back a note and said, nothing more to add. Get this out there and see what happens. So I have nothing more to add to this. A professional children's book editor told me that. Now it's time to see if I can get it published. One of my big goals that's exciting to me is the idea of my name on a kid's book. So do you think I'm going to be motivated by that image? It's got to be something exciting to you. What's exciting to you? What would it be that if you do this in 2019, January 1st, 2009, next year comes around, I'm teaching this, and you're like, oh my goodness, I got to tell you what I did. What's exciting to you? You got to figure that out. You got to go after something that's exciting to you. All right. Third thing is depend on God through prayer. So some of you feel like, well, there's that token God stuff. You got to throw it in the goals message. It's not what I'm doing. This is actually very significant in a couple of ways. I'm going to show you this. So depend on God through prayer. There's a couple of things I want you to pray. First off, I want you to pray this. And now, if you're a follower of Jesus, this is what I actually want you to take a moment right now and say to God. So I'm going to give you a moment. If you're not a follower of Jesus, you can just read the words. If you are a follower of Jesus, this is really important. And while we're sitting here, I just want you to start this conversation with God. Because the reality is God may have a plan for you other than what you know. Isn't that true? There are many times God will say, this is your plan for the next year, but I have something different for you. So this is about learning to submit our will to the will of God, letting God speak to us and guide us, which again, we're going to talk a lot about in this series, and I want you to start it today. I want you to seriously say, God, what do you want? In the New Testament, there's this verse where he said, don't stand up and say, here's my plan for 2019. I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. He comes back and he says this in the verse. He says, what you ought to say is, if the Lord wants us to, we shall live and do this or that. Otherwise, you'll be bragging about your own plans and such self-confidence. That's not pleasing to God. He wants us to live in a kind of dependent relationship with him where we are listening to him and we are responding to his prompts, and there's an element of God guiding you, and we'll show you that in this whole series. Some of you don't know how to listen for God's voice. We're going to show you that. But I want you to start it today and say, God, what are your plans for my life in 2019? And just at least make yourself open to the possibility that he does have a plan. And then the second prayer is, God, help me accomplish these goals. So whatever goals you write, that should be at the bottom of your goals, written out, is God, help me accomplish this. And by the way, if you can look at your goal sheet and you can do it all without God, then you haven't set the right goals. Because at least one of them needs to be something that's so stretching and challenging, you can't do it without God. Because then you'll pray differently. I cannot get my book published in 2019. I can self-publish, but that's not what I want. I don't own a publishing company. I know nobody who owns a publishing company. The statistics about how hard it is in America to get your book published are ridiculous. The best-selling authors in America today were rejected so many times. Like the number one best-selling author in America today, his first book was rejected 80 times. And he's the number one best-selling author in America today. So I can't make this happen. I can do everything I can to create the environment where it's going to happen, but then I'm depending on God. And so my prayer is, God, help. God, help. Because I really would like to do this. So you should have at least one goal that says, God's got to help me with this one. It's exciting to me. I really want it. God, help me. Fourth, design a plan. Design a plan. This is where people who try goal setting and get discouraged, is like, well, tried that goal stuff one of those years, it just didn't work. And most of the time when I see goals fail, it's because of this one right here. This is where goals break down. It's because they have no plan. One of the most interesting examples of this is this guy. You ever see this show, Man vs. Wild? Amazing show. They drop this guy off in the middle of these horrific conditions, and he's got to survive with a video camera recording what he does to survive. One time I was watching this show, and he was in this desert, and he had no water. And so he knows all these survival techniques, and he came across a big mound of elephant poo. And he said, here you go. You're in the middle of the desert. You have no water. How are you going to survive? And he takes the elephant poo, and he squeezes it, and water comes out. And he's like, in an emergency, you can survive on the liquid from the elephant poo. And I'm thinking, as I'm watching him do this, I'm thinking, I'm simply going to die. That's his plan. I got a different plan. You'll find my corpse next to the elephant poo, unsqueezed. That's my plan. So it's like, are you kidding me? But he has a plan. I mean, if you've seen the show, he's got a plan for every situation he's in. He knows exactly what he's doing, and that's how he can survive in situations where I will be dead. So planning is so important. This is where the two mistakes people make when it comes to setting goals are usually right here. If they're not specific, the other thing they're not is they're not planned out. So typically they say, I'm going to lose 20 pounds this year. And you ask them, how are you going to do it? They go, right? No plan at all. So what you need to understand is a goal without a plan is just a wish. So go home, buy a magic genie bottle, and rub the bottle every day and hope I lose 20 pounds. Because that's all you're doing. You have no plan. No plan is just a wish. And just so you know, wish upon a star all you want, but it's not going to happen. Goals without plans are just wishes. This is where people break down. The other thing they break down on, and another reason why people are so cynical about goals is sometimes they develop the wrong plan. And planning is hard, right? There are people who do this for a living. Planning is hard. So sometimes they're like, here's my goal. I'm really excited about it. Here's my reality. I don't want this anymore. I want this. This is what I'm driving for. And so they write a plan. And at the end of the year, that didn't change. And it wasn't because they were wrong or the goal was wrong. It's because the plan was wrong. That can happen. This guy, for those of you who need some encouragement about this guy is an example to look to. His name is Zig Ziglar. Ever heard of Zig Ziglar? One of the most famous authors, multimillionaire, published 30 books in his lifetime, recently passed away. Just an incredible, incredible leader and speaker. He, at the age of 45, was bankrupt, broken, and dead. So at the halfway point in his life, all the wheels have fallen off. And yet finishes as this very successful man. And he said, when he looked back and talked about it, he said, I was enthusiastic, I was motivated, but I had the wrong plan. So that can happen. That'll derail your achievement of your goals in 2019. Having no plan or having the wrong plan. And so planning is a challenge, and I know this is a challenge. So I want to ask you to think about planning in a very different way. Years ago, one of my favorite books, sometimes people ask me for book recommendations, read this one. Charles Duhigg wrote a book called The Power of Habit. I couldn't put this book down. It was one of the most interesting books about habit that I've ever read. And one of the things he teaches is directly related to the subject of what we're talking about today, and it's about goals. He said, and it's on your notes, here's what I want you to write down, and I'll explain it in just a moment. He said, you need to think about what's the keystone habit for achieving your goal. So once you're like, here's where I'm at, here's where I want to go, here's my plan, you don't need to think of a 30-step plan. He said, typically what you need to come up with is 1 or 2 keystone habits. Now, keystone habit is a habit that does this in your life. You change one aspect of your life, and all of a sudden, all these other things change. That's a keystone habit. And in his research, and he talks about this in the book, he said over and over again, what their research showed is you're not trying to change 50 things about your life. You got this one area, let's take physical health, because it's the number one thing people are thinking about right now, physical or financial health, right? He said, you're not trying to change 50 things about your finances, 50 things about your physical health. You're trying to change 1 or 2. Those are the key things, and if you knock the right one down, all of a sudden, all the other tumblers fall. And he said, in your life, in every goal that you want to set, everything better that you want to have, he said this. He said, you don't have to change dozens of habits to get to your goals. You typically only have to change a few. And it has this ripple effect on all of your outcomes. And in the book, he defines this, and I've added some more to it. Here are some keystone habits that he came across. Tracking what you eat, regular exercise, eating family dinners. There's a fascinating part of the book where he talks about all the positive impacts that happen in your family if you just sit down for 1 meal a week. What we used to do as a nation, which we never do anymore or rarely do anymore, the keystone habit that is and the impact it has on your family and your parenting is just so significant. Making your bed, fascinating one. Not going to talk more about it, but Google it. In fact, there was an admiral, I watched a video last year where he talked about the importance of that as being a keystone habit to start your day off organized and right. So I started it 2 months ago. It's so ridiculous how amazing that is. It is ridiculous. Making your bed has any kind of positive, real impact in your life, and it does. My bed's always made. Reviewing positive thoughts, essential keystone habit, especially for those of you who do too much negative self-talk. You need to have positive thoughts that you look at every single day. Planning your day the night before or planning your work before you start or spending 15 minutes a day with God. And in the book, he tells a story. So I want to give you an example of what this looks like. You ever heard of this, MyFitnessPal? I used to use this years and years ago. MyFitnessPal, he came across and he talked about it. He said, he wanted to set a goal. He wanted to lose some weight, and he had a goal. And this was the keystone habit that he came across. You heard about this thing? It's this app you put on your phone, and what you do is you track what you eat in the typical day. And so you get, there's this calories that he has the day, and on the right, every meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, you just go into this thing and you type in what you ate, and it'll tell you how many calories you have left for the day. He said this one thing was a keystone habit in his entire life, because all of a sudden he said, like I said, dominoes. He started looking at what he was eating every day and adding it up. He's over calories every single day. And so all of a sudden he's like, man, I didn't realize I was eating like this. I need to change. I need to exercise more so I can keep eating at the level that I'm eating at. And so all of a sudden he started exercising, and you can put the exercise in and it gives you back all these calories. So it's like, all right. And then all of a sudden he's like, wait a second, this is kind of stupid. Why am I doing this? Why am I eating so much sugar in my day? If I cut out all this sugar, I don't have to exercise as much. And so all of a sudden he changed his eating habits. Then he's like, maybe I should eat healthy. Maybe I should have a salad. And all of a sudden, it changed all of these other habits because he did one. I'm tracking what I eat. That's a keystone habit. It knocks down all these other dominoes. What I want you to know is many of you, you're just one change away. Not 50. Your plan doesn't have to be enormous or elaborate. You're one change away from having the life that you want. And that may not be it for you. That's okay. The plan, you're going to have to evaluate your plan as you get into the year. Are you achieving the goals that you want? So let me give you an example from mine. Oh, I love this verse. I love the fact that God is a planning God. I could show you so many verses about this. The plans of the diligent lead to profit. As surely as haste leads to poverty. He said, your life will be better if you plan. You have to have a plan. Our God is a planning God. So here we go. Here's my goal, as I've worded it in my goals. Now, some of you are like, well, that's not very positive. Do all I can to get my book published in 2019. I can't, like I told you, I can't make it happen. I don't own a publishing company. And that would be cheating anyway. I want it to be published because a publisher says, I want your book. I don't have control over it, so that's all I have control over. I will do all I can to get it published. So then I started thinking, well, what do I need? One of the things I need is a creative writing area in my new house. In my old house, I had one. I didn't have one. So yesterday, I spent a huge part of the afternoon remodeling my dining area, and I created a writing area. Because I need a place when I sit down, that's where I write. That's just what I've learned about myself. You may not need that. If you like writing, you may be able to write anywhere. I can't, not me. So I needed that. So that was the first thing. I've already accomplished one step on my way to my goal. That was really kind of cool. Then I got these other steps, and again, there's more to it. I just put a little piece on it. The keystone habit, by the way, isn't even up there. The keystone habit, besides the writing area, that was a keystone. But the other keystone is I need a dedicated writing time where this is my writing time, and I have an idea on what I'm going to do for my writing time. Because if I want to be a writer, I have to write. Can't be sporadic. And that'll be the keystone habit, because if I do it, I'll get better. So what is your keystone habit? Here's where you're at. Here's where you want to go. What's your plan? You plan that out. All right, and the last thing is get support. You got to get help. Very few people can set and achieve their goals on their own. Matter of fact, one of my favorite authors, if you come here, you're going to hear me talk about Dr. Henry Cloud all the time. He said this, the number one reason for lack of growth in people's lives is the absence of joining forces outside themselves with people who push them to grow. So my question is this. Who in 2019 is going to push you to grow? Who do you have in 2019 that's going to push you to grow? Unless you're sitting here today saying, I am at the pinnacle of human perfection. There's just nothing more needs to happen here, okay? And if you are, tell us all so we can stay far away from you, right? But for the rest of us flawed human beings, who's going to push you to grow? It is, he's right. He wrote a book about how people grow, another great book. And in there, he talked about it. Anytime you lack the energy inside yourself to make a change, let's say people in 2019, one of my friends is going to, in 2019, quit smoking. Do you know how hard that's going to be? All of you know that, right? Some of you have done that. Super hard, but she's done. It's too expensive. Now, again, think about what she has to do. She has to make that exciting. Now, on one level, it's not exciting to give up something that you really, really love, is it? If she just thinks of it as a negative, I got to get rid of this thing, that's not going to be compelling to her. She's got to turn it into a positive. I want, this is going to save me $500 this year, probably more than that. And I'm going to be able to use that to go on a trip to Tahiti, whatever. You got to turn it into something exciting. That's the first thing I'd tell her, turn it into something exciting. And then she have to, I don't know where she's at spiritually, depend on God, all these things, make a plan. But this is what she's really going to need. Anytime Dr. Cloud says you lack the energy in yourself to make the change, you need somebody else who's going to push you to grow. It's exactly what the Bible said. The Bible says you get the right person in your life, they're going to sharpen you, make your life better than it could ever be on its own. God has already said this. So for some of you, when you're thinking about who should you ask, don't ask me. I've already got my people that I'm going to be doing this with. So I'll look your goals over and give you feedback, but I'm not going to be the one to do this for you. So you need to look for and find someone who's available. They have some time to meet with you, even if it's just 5 minutes on the phone every week. Or you can do it by email. If you're really close with them, every Monday morning you send an email to your accountability partner, your encouragement partner, and say, here's what I did on my goals this last week. Here's what I'm planning on doing this week. And if it's nothing, then you're honest about that. But usually, if you're going to get in the habit of doing that every week, you're going to do something. So somebody who's going to push you to grow. You need someone who's available for you, someone who's serious about goals. Don't give it the person that thinks this is a joke, because they're not going to encourage you, right? They need to be someone who's serious about growing and changing this next year themselves, and they need to be encouraging. I used to word that differently. I used to say they need to kick your butt. You need someone who's going to kick your butt when you're not doing it. I don't believe that. You need someone who's going to encourage you, because encouragement is the powerful force in America today. That's what changes people in a positive way. So you need encouragers. Now, a couple of little things at the end that are not on your notes. If you want to run them down, you can. Otherwise, they'll be on YouTube. You can watch this again. Write your goals out. Do you know studies show that you are 42% more likely to accomplish a goal that you write out? So if you just keep it in your head and was like, I got these 2 goals, then you are 42% less likely to achieve them if you don't write them out. What are your goals? Write them out. Only start with a few goals. Do not go hog wild. Some of you are like, all right, yeah, I'm going to make 2019 amazing. I'm going to set 47 goals. No, I only have 5. 5 goals. Some of you who have bad experiences with goals or the subject makes you nervous, set 2. 2 goals. Pick the 2 that are most exciting to you, and you better be able to tell me why they're exciting to you, and then set those goals and just keep it simple. And then in case I haven't said this enough, they have to excite you. You've got to think about, why is this exciting to me? Why do I want this? Well, I want this. Here's what I want. You have to do the hard work of thinking this through. And then ask, for those, especially those you only have 2, does one stretch you? If you're setting 2 simple goals, well, I guess I'm happy about that. But one of them should stretch you a little bit. One year, I set a goal, one of my favorite years, I set a goal to finish 50 books in 1 year. Finish them. Because I read a lot, but I don't always finish all the books that I finish. So 1 year, I set a goal to finish 50 books. I finished on Christmas Eve. It's like, I didn't enjoy that. I've never set that again, because some books should not be finished. But I'd set it, and I was accomplishing and tracking it, and I'm like, I will never set that one again. Wrong goal. I learned a lot, and I'm glad I accomplished it, but that was stretching for me. What are the goals that you have? We have one that's going to stretch you. And then here's something brand new. I've never taught on this before. I just learned it from a coworker. My coworker had this board sitting on her desk. All these images and words. Some of you heard this before. I've never heard of a visual board. And I'm like, what's that? And she said, well, this is what I want to do in 2019. It's a visual board. I'm like, that is so cool. We are visual people. Human beings are visual. So I took her idea and I made a visual board. So here's my visual board. It will mean nothing or little to you. But I have 5 goals. You see 6 pictures. A couple of them are duplicates, and they all represent my goals. Some of you are like, your goal is meatballs? Yes, my goal is meatballs. That doesn't mean anything to you, and I'm not explaining it today, but that's one of my goals. And all of them represent something that I am excited about. And so this is now the screensaver on my computer, and this is getting printed off and hung up at my computer desk at work, and this is going to be in my home, in my workstation that I just created in my dining room. This is going to be everywhere, because when I see it, I get excited. You need a visual that will tap that excitement inside you, so you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. This is my plan. Now, I know when I teach on goals, having done this enough, I'm like, people struggle with this. It's like, that doesn't seem like a churchy topic. Well, the reality is everything I've just talked about is modeled in God. All of it. When we're celebrating, we just celebrated the birth of Jesus into this world. All of it is modeling this. God couldn't stand the reality of human existence. We talked about, there's a gap. Well, the gap exists between perfect Father in heaven and fallen humanity. It is an enormous gap. God cannot stand the reality of human separation. Can't stand it. Our God is a God of love. And when you can't be with someone you love, that tortures you. So he They set a plan in motion. They had a goal to reconcile fallen humanity, to pay for all of us, what we've done that's wrong. And then they created a plan. Did you know the Bible talks about it in terms of a plan? The plan was that God the Son would leave his place in heaven, come into the world, and part of the plan intentionally was that Jesus would die on a cross. That was all part of the plan in order to accomplish the goal that all of humanity could be forgiven and made right with God the Father. Our God models all of this. Let me have you bow your heads as we finish today. Maybe for you spiritually, again, for some of you, there are things in 2019 that need to change. You know it. And if you don't know it, then you really need to give some thought to your life, because the reality is none of us are perfect. We're all flawed. And there are things our lives would be so much better and our relationships would be better if we changed some things. And this is the time to think about that. So what are your goals? Even if you just walk out here determined to write 2 of them, I want to challenge you to at least write 2. If you want me to look it over, I'll gladly give you all the feedback I can. And then you pray. Again, pray, God, what's your plan for me in 2019? And then some of you need to pray and say, God, who can hold me accountable with these goals in 2019? You need to pray both those things. And then this is the key to a life that's going to be better, following the example of Jesus. So for some of you, spiritually, you would not call yourself a follower of Jesus. And I want to be really clear about what this is all about. It has never been about religion. It's never been about some religious ceremony. Honestly, it's not about whether you've been baptized or confirmed, whether you attend church, whether you give money to the poor. That in and of itself is not what this is about at all. This is about a real relationship with a real God who loves you, who sent his son 2,000 years ago into this world to die for you. That's what Jesus was doing 2,000 years ago on that cross. He gave his life, allowed himself to be executed so that you and he could pay for all that we've done that's wrong. Our unloving things had to be paid for. Jesus paid for all of them with his death on the cross and then rose again. And if you will let him today, he will forgive you. He will come and make his home inside of you. He'll begin the change process from the inside out, and you'll have God going forward. Not religion, but a real God. And if you want this with your head bowed and your eyes closed, you can say something like this in your heart. Say, Jesus, I'm turning to you today. I know I'm not perfect, not even close. And I've heard that you died for me on that cross. Would you please forgive me? Come and make your home inside of me today. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, as we finish today, would you please open your program again, take this little card out. Even if you're a regular tender, we ask you to do this. Just take a moment and put your name down. If you're a regular tender, just put your name down. But for the rest of you, if maybe some of you today, you've decided to ask Jesus to forgive you, there's a box right there. Would you check that little spot? Or if you renewed your commitment, let us know about that. Some of you want us to pray for you as you set goals, because this is a big deal for you. Put it down here. We've got a team of people that will pray. If you have questions or comments, you can write them on there. Then just drop this in one of the 2 offering boxes on the back wall. Thanks so much for coming. Hope to see you again next week.